And very good morning to you. This is Newsline, live from the Newsfirst studios in Daughter Street in Colombo and broadcasting on TV1. And this morning, joining us on the set is Dr. Paikiosothy Saeavanamuttu from the Centre for Policy Alternatives, the CPA. Good morning to you, Dr. Saeavanamuttu.
Good morning.
I forgot your title, actually. Executive Director, is it?
Executive Director.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for being here and on time for the traffic and all that. But tell us, what's happening with reconciliation and this task force and so on?
Well, as you may know, I happen to be the secretary of the consultation task force on mechanisms for reconciliation, and it's an 11-person task force drawn entirely from civil society, which are, over the last so many months, has been carrying on island-wide consultations on people's views with regard to the design, the structure, the powers and functions of 4 mechanisms for reconciliation that the government of Sri Lanka proposed in Geneva in October of last year, and which are now incorporated in that Geneva resolution at the UN Human Rights Council. So you have an Office of Missing Persons, an Office for Reparations, a Truth-Seeking Commission, and also an accountability mechanism, which is to comprise of a special court and a special counsel or prosecutor's office. Now, the legislation with regard to the Office of Missing Persons has gone through Parliament, and hopefully it will be established come January. The others are yet to be set up, and indeed our report has yet to be received by the President, which we hope will happen very, very soon. So we had consultations island-wide, in the north and east, in all the districts of the north and east, and at a provincial level. And there were zonal task forces, people drawn from the area, who actually conducted the consultations. And that was very successful because people felt a lot more comfortable talking to people from their own area, talking directly in a language that was understood. And one problem that we did have was certain problems with regard to security. People feeling intimidated by the presence of security people, intimidation, harassment, that kind of thing.
Did they feel intimidated by the presence of media? Were the media allowed to be there?
The media were allowed to be there, but there were certain instances in which people giving submissions, making submissions, didn't want the media to be there, and so the media was asked to leave.
Oh, so they had that choice of...
Oh yeah, absolutely, because the whole process has got to be victim-centered.
Right.
And so it is their desires and wishes that have to be given prominence and primacy. But on the security front, we did speak with the commanders of the Army, Navy, Air Force, to spoke to the police. But unfortunately, orders don't seem to have always got down to the ground level, and there were some incidents.
Were these people did they turn up there voluntarily in response to some notification that this was going to happen, or were they sort of pushed and prodded by others to turn up? And
as far as I know, they all turned up voluntarily. There was no pushing and prodding. I mean, it may well have been the case that certain people said, look, there is this happening. Why don't you come along and make your submissions too? But there was, in the local newspapers, in the media, by word of mouth, on television, there was a certain amount of pre-publicity with regard to it. I mean, we ended up getting about 7,500 people coming before us to make submissions, all in all. And this is throughout the country, north, south, east, and west. And the modalities was that you had public meetings, and you also had what we call focus group discussions, where you're dealing with particular types of victims as well. Now, in terms of the public meetings, I mean, we had down south, for example, we had over 300 in Mata attending. So, you know, it was something. People wanted to come and give their submissions, wanted their voices heard. They were very, I suppose, thrilled is probably the word, in a sense, very appreciative of the fact that this was the first time that anyone had come out and asked them for their views on what should be done. You know, that was something that they very appreciative of.
Quite interesting to see. Well, are you able to tell us what, by and large, what the folks down south had to say?
Yes, I think the notion that there is a huge and clear distinction between what people in the South would want in respect to reconciliation, transitional justice, and what people in the North and East, etc., is not correct. There is a commonality in terms of everyone wants the truth established.
Okay.
Yeah? And they insist that, look, establishment of the truth doesn't mean that every single person involved in a human rights atrocity has to be taken and tried and all of that. They want establishment of the truth, and they want the accountability of the person who gave the orders. That is what seems to be very important, and this is what comes out.
And what has come out?
What has come out is that they want establishment of the truth, accountability in respect who gave the orders.
What's the perception as to who gave the orders?
Well, I mean, in some cases they did mention names.
Like?
I can't tell you. I mean,
Right.
But I mean, in some cases.
Is that because you haven't disclosed this yet to the...
And also because it's an allegation. No? It has to be tried in a court of law before one parades someone's name out there as being a perpetrator of a human rights atrocity.
Right. So, okay. So you can't tell us the name. But so that's interesting. Even the people in the South want to know where this is all going. And do you think enough has been done through this process?
Well, I mean, you can have a consultation process that goes on and on and on and on, but I think, in the consultation process that we had, I think we've sort of more or less established the representative opinion in the North, South, East and West of the country in terms of what their expectations are as far as reconciliation, transitional justice is concerned. And now it's incumbent upon the government to build on that. One of the things that also came out strongly is that they would like to hear from the government. Why transitional justice? What is the rationale for it? Why they want to set up these 4 mechanisms? That conversation has yet to commence, and I hope it does as soon as possible.
Is it a message, do you think, that will be controversial when one...
Well, it could be. I suppose the controversial dimension is with regard to, we've already had this, the participation of internationals on the court in particular, but that's there in the resolution.
But is legally, are these judges, for example, can they come and serve here? They can't, can they?
No, I don't see any reason why they can't. If there is a decision that there needs to be legislation passed, then the government must go ahead and pass that legislation. But
that's what I mean.
I don't see any reason why they can't.
So, but what you're saying is the legislation must be in place.
If there is a sense that that is an absolute requirement. Yeah.
Right. Don't you think the people who are anti this sort of thing will take that and parade that as being interference and that our sovereignty is being compromised and so on and so forth?
Well, so that is why I say it is incumbent on the government, which co-sponsored a resolution in the UN Human Rights Council in September-October of last year, which allowed for the active participation of internationals as judges, as prosecutors, etc. So the government needs to, it has championed this in terms of a resolution internationally, made an international commitment to that resolution. Now it needs to explain and renew and reaffirm that commitment domestically.
Thank you. We have a question from a viewer. Accountability on the aspect of the military is fine. What then is the accountability that victims of the LTT can expect?
Well, there are people who were associated with the LTT. As far as I know, the designated successor by Prabhakaran is still around. So if you're talking about responsibility at the end of the day, it is a myth that there isn't anyone from the LTT who can be charged.
So there are people still.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that KP was designated by Prabhakaran, for example, as the leader of the LTTE. There are atrocities, there are allegations of atrocities against someone like Karuna, for example. So
have you seen KP lately?
I have never seen KP.
Oh, I thought you may have bumped into each other because he's running some NGO.
Well, there are 1,001 NGOs in the country.
You haven't met them all?
And we don't bump into each other as a regular course of events.
How nicely put. Where is he? Where is KP?
I
Do you know?
have no idea. You have to ask the government, because I think he has a certain amount of protection from the state. Or at least he did from the previous dispensation.
Is that quite fair, this... what was your take on that, of the previous government bringing these people in? There's KP, there's Coroner, and the other chap who's...
But the point is this, and it's all very well and good in order to be able to rehabilitate them, I say that in quotes, in terms of bringing them in, making some kind of deal with them so that they give you information about the operations of the LTT finances, resources, and all of that. But the point is very simply this, is that does the government of the day have, and I'm not saying that this actually happened, but does the government of the day have the right, the power, the authority to grant immunity and amnesty, if you like, to someone who has committed human rights atrocities? What about the victims? What rights do they have?
What about the money that the LTT would have collected overseas?
Well, presumably some of it would have been collected by the previous dispensation. I would imagine there's still some out there.
No real apparent effort or no news of that money, if it's fined or...
Well, there's so much of money that has been salted away by various people who've had either power and authority or both. Right. And I think people sort of get confused as to who has done what.
Do you think that in your lifetime they'll ever find any of this?
Well, I intend to live a long time, and therefore I assume they will.
Right. What's the average age here? Is around in the 70s, isn't it?
No, I think I should go to my 80s.
Right. So we've got a long time to go.
Indeed. We have all the time in the world. Patience and persistence is what is required to find the truth.
Somebody said, somebody from Mount Lavinia actually, he said that when he was asked to submit his bill for some wedding or other event that was held there, he said, why are you in a hurry? Gentlemen are never in a hurry. So the public, gentlemen and ladies, aren't in a hurry. So do you think in the fullness of time these matters will come out?
These matters will come out in the fullness of time, but in the political context, the public is in a hurry in this sense. They want to know that the trajectory of events, of developments, are in the right direction. They want to know that there is some sincerity of commitment, that there is a capacity, ability to be able to search for this. And so, in that sense, there is a certain amount of impatience.
We had information that our president will be writing to President-elect Trump to ask him to go easy, I think, or cancel it, whatever. How much of notice do these leaders out there pay to this little country, which they probably don't even know where it is?
Well, I'm not quite sure how the Trump transition team actually works at the present moment, because after all, Trump is only a president-elect until the 20th of January of next year. But I think what is to me somewhat surprising is as to why the president of Sri Lanka would be writing to the president-elect of the United States to request, or whatever the reportage was, to request him to get Sri Lanka off the hook, as it were, as far as human rights atrocities, allegations of war crimes, all of that, accountability is concerned. I mean, the Sri Lankan government has co-sponsored a resolution in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, which covers all of this.
Tell me, Doctor, when the government of Sri Lanka is travelling out there to make decisions, is it cleared previously by the cabinet?
Well, as far as I have heard, there was, in this particular instance, no question of anyone in power and authority not knowing the government position.
So everybody, sort of knew.
I don't think anyone can plead ignorance.
But then we have the president who says there's not going to be any judges, and then the prime minister says there will be participation. What is that level of participation?
I can only speculate as much as you can as well. Participation could be participation in an advisory capacity.
Yes, may mean anything.
Yeah, it could mean anything. Participation could also actually mean that there could be a judge.
Yes, right. But isn't it wonderful, the quaintness of the English language, that you can sort of hide behind and not really say much?
Well, the clock is ticking. I mean, the point is that, language notwithstanding and its wonderful elements as well, we're getting close to the point where things have to be done.
We have another viewer. The Paranagama Commission went from village to village and obtained video evidence from 22,000 people on evidence on disappearances. Why has this report been swept under the carpet? Should not this report be the basis of the accountability drive? That sounds good.
Well, the report is not swept under the carpet. I'm not quite sure whether a final report has yet been submitted to the president, and it certainly won't be swept under the carpet. And I would imagine that whatever the Paranagama Commission got in terms of submissions on disappearances will be handed over to the Office of Missing Persons, and they will build on that evidence in their work. So nothing's been swept under the carpet. I mean, there were a number of criticisms of the Paranagama Commission, and that is probably why the government came up with alternative mechanisms like the Office of Missing Persons, which will be a permanent office.
And Doctor, I must ask you this, which is very important to know. Did your organisation take a stand on this Treasury bond matter?
As far as the Centre for Policy Alternatives is concerned, we have maintained a consistent record with regard to governance, transparency, accountability, and therefore we have always said that if there are allegations in respect of anything, I mean from allegations of war crimes, crimes against humanity, to fraud, to whatever, there should be proper investigations. And when you're doing investigations, it's very important that public confidence and trust in the impartiality and independence of those investigations is there. Otherwise, there's going to be all sorts of allegations of, look, it was fixed and partisan and impartial, partial, and all of that. So, in order to be able to sustain the promises and deliver on those promises with regard to governance and accountability and all of that, there is no shying away from the simple fact that the government of the day needs to ensure that there are independent investigations in respect of any allegations, and certainly allegations of fraud or theft of this nature to an extent.
And we will need a special court, you think, to deal with this accountability?
I'm not entirely convinced that you need a special court, but certainly if a special court is needed, it should be set up.
In a time scale, what are we looking at?
Well, I mean, the first time scale that comes to mind, of course, is the political one, insofar as there are elections. The people will have a choice, and it will be good to be able to have all of these things done and dusted before you go to the people again in a national election. So we are now here in almost into 2017. And I think, given that the issue is something that people know about, people talk about, the sooner the better.
Do you think it will happen in the lifetime of this Parliament, which I think ends in 2020?
2020. Yes, I think that's possible.
What is the government lacking? Are they lacking resources? What are they lacking?
With regard to an investigation?
Yes.
Well, I think what they perhaps are lacking is a consensus in terms of what precisely ought to be done. I think within the government, despite the fact that the government is not a sort of monolith as such, I think within the government there probably is a recognition that something has to be done. The issue is how, and therefore it is making that decision and recognizing that it's important that it's done sooner rather than later.
And what about the people of the former conflict areas, by and large? Are they? I get the feeling sometimes, being there, that there's a sense of weariness here, that they really want things to happen and they want to move on. It's only fair, but is that about right? That the people out there may be a bit weary of all these things?
Well, I mean, they certainly feel that not enough has changed since they voted in 2015 in vast numbers for this government. And so they want to see expedited return of land, relaxation, and getting rid of the militarization that they've had of military involvement in the economy, in civilian affairs. They would like to see the release of detainees, have information with regard to surrendees. They would like to see the PTA repealed and replaced with something else, but not that draft counterterrorism act that was sent out. So there are a number of still hopes and expectations that they have in respect of confidence building measures, etc. And certainly, yes, they want all of those in place to be able to move on.
But also to be able to move on, for example, what about this business about the housing? Now that proposal by this government, 65,000 homes, is run into a steel wall.
Yes.
So this claim and counterclaim. We had the minister here who said that it's all wrong, that it's a misconception that these things, because they're made out of steel, will mean that the residents of the occupants of the house will be cooked by the following day in the morning.
Well, I mean, everyone within the community, including, as I understand, all, if not the vast majority of Tamil National Alliance MPs, have written to the government and said this plan should be shelved.
But why? I mean, it's houses.
It's not a question of houses that should be shelved, but these steel houses, this particular scheme needs to be shelved. And I don't quite understand, to be perfectly frank, as to why this issue keeps cropping up. There's a remarkable persistence on the part of the advocates of this particular scheme, so that it keeps cropping up again and again and again. And the point is going to be, I mean, I don't think there's any escaping from the public perception that there are special interests that are pushing this, and that the government seems unwilling or unable to resist those public interests in the face of a series of objections from the community itself.
Minister Swaminathan stated that the TNA does not allow any development at all to take place. He said he was sad that this is happening.
Mr. Swaminathan's sadness notwithstanding, the simple point is that the TNA controls the Provincial Council of the North. The TNA is also the official opposition of this country by virtue of the fact that it has that number of seats from the North and East. So I think the point is to sit and work with the TNA, to talk to them, and come to some kind of understanding rather than to be trading any kind of sort of insults or accusations of any kind. I mean, one needs to deal with the TNA then.
What this really means is that these people, it's not like they have houses and they're going to be exchanging that for something else.
No, certainly not.
So they don't have these homes to live in. The most basic blessed thing isn't there for them, and then all these people are all arguing with each other.
No, so it's the suitability of the type of residence that has been given to them. I mean, so why is it that we can't think of doing something with different material, which they're used to, and at a much less cost?
Yes, the minister says that the 2.1 million has come down to about 1.6 million.
Well, if we keep going at this for another 6 months, say, for example,
Every million then.
it could be. I mean, this is like some sort of auction in inverse.
But it's auctioning the people's plight, isn't it?
Exactly, that's the point. That is the point, and therefore they should stop.
Can't
A
they just-
decision should be taken and held to, and that decision should be taken on the basis of discussion and consultation with the key stakeholders.
President Premadas's housing scheme didn't run into so much a storm, or did it?
Well, it ran into
that it
some.
did.
No, certainly not of this nature, as far as I remember.
And, I mean, President Premadas won some global habitat award on this as well.
Yes, he did. He did.
And so it's already sad. Why can't they just do 200 test homes and then check if these people are being cooked by the next morning?
Well, did you have the Minister Swaminathan in this chat?
Yes,
Did you ask him this
he
question?
said that he's urging them to do even a few. But we are going over there to check on this and report back. And
I shall look forward to that report.
perhaps you might like to join us.
Perhaps.
It's in Kopai.
When are you going?
We are hoping to go next week, I believe. They've been on the phone yesterday. So these things are sort of being worked out at the moment. In the meantime, Dr. Paikiosothy, Saeavanamuttu, thank you very much for being on Newsline. And it's been a pleasure to see you after a while.
Indeed.
And we look forward to you coming back and telling us about the progress that this vexed problem is.
And thank you for that excellent double expression.
All right. That then brings us to a natural conclusion of this program. Thank you very much for being part of Newsline. We'll be here same time, same place tomorrow morning with another guest answering hopefully the questions that you want answered. In the meantime, take care and have a great day. God bless.